where we have a heavy rain event and the ponds start to overtake the pumping station, those pumps will be lifted up above. So the pumps will be able to continue to pump that wastewater and hopefully not have any spills into our community. So this is just an example, $94 million that we're putting into this project. You all recall in 2019, when our administration first took office, we passed the $3 billion pipes plan, and that was to replace the aging infrastructure, water and wastewater pipes throughout the city of Tampa. And we are able to monitor all of those pipes and put them in descending order of the ones that need to be replaced first. And we've been working on that since 2019. And so this pumping station right here at 18th Street is one of 28 out of 228 pumping stations that are going to be improved. And I know everyone knows this as well, but the wastewater is gravity fed, and so our water system is pressurized. So when the water pump break or a water pipe breaks, you know it immediately. With our wastewater, we have to have these pumping stations that will lift that wastewater up to the next level so that it can continue along that downward gravity path. So we are making these improvements for our community each and every day. And we saw the impacts from Milton of the excessive rain, historical amount of rain that we received in a very short period of time, and the impact that that had on our community. And so we are trying to address all of those issues as quickly as we possibly can. And this is just another great example. So now we have, next is someone who's gonna come up, and she's gonna be the one that's able to answer the majority of your questions. And if there's any question she can't answer, then the next speaker will. So we have Kayla Caselli, our Sustainability and Resiliency Officer, is gonna come up and give a little bit more information about the assessment and about this project. Kayla?
Thank you, Mayor. The 2025 Vulnerability Assessment was funded and developed through the Resilient Florida program. We thank our leadership at the state level and the implementers of the program at the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. The assessment focuses on our city-owned infrastructure, looking at the vulnerability to flooding from sea level rise, extreme rainfall, and storm surge through the year 2070. The city's infrastructure, such as buildings, pump stations, bridges, cultural assets, and transportation networks, were evaluated to determine the vulnerability to these risks. Sea level rise is a risk that will increase gradually over the next few decades, with NOAA predicting that the Gulf Coast would experience an increase of 14 to 18 inches by 2050. Alone, this does not pose a large risk to our city, as much of it lies at or above 5 feet above sea level. But when combined with extreme rainfall or storm surge events, as Mayor Castor referenced, it stands to make the flooding caused by these events even worse. The good news is we have the most time to adapt to the effects of sea level rise. As Floridians, we tend to understand that those who choose to live on Tampa's 127 miles of coastline can experience increased risk of flooding caused by storm surge. This flooding could be catastrophic to homes and businesses, as seen in this past fall when Tampa experienced about 8 feet of storm surge during Hurricane Helene, overwhelming low-lying coastal neighborhoods. Some neighborhoods and areas most at risk include, but are not limited to, Palmetto Beach, Bayshore Boulevard, Port Tampa, Sunset Park, and Beach Park. Investing and adapting infrastructure to storm surge will require a variety of approaches. There is not a one-size-fits-all approach to mitigate these risks. In the past, the mindset of flood risk has been seen as the following: the closer you are to water, the more risk you have. And inversely, the further you are from water, the fewer flood risks you face. When Tampa received over 13 inches of rain in 24 hours during Hurricane Milton, it confirmed one of the assessment's highlights. Extreme rainfall is the most frequent and consistent flood risk our city will face in the coming decades, and it will affect neighborhoods that are inland as well as those that are coastal. Tampa's natural topography includes closed inland basins that act like bowls where water travels to the lowest point. Instead of water flowing directly into the Hillsborough River or bays, these areas relied on natural features such as sinks or wetlands where water could be absorbed and eventually find its way back to the Floridan aquifer. Many of these are not functioning like they have historically or not at the rate we need them to prevent the flooding currently and projected from extreme rainfall. Some of the areas identified as having the most risk include Tampa Overlook, where we are currently, Forest Hills, and areas in the Upper Peninsula of South Tampa. Flood risks are not isolated to our coastline, and extreme rainfall risk we will need to adapt at the quickest rate with continued investment in pipes, pumps, and other adaptation strategies. In many ways, this assessment confirms what our city experienced this past fall when Hurricane Helene brought record storm surges and Hurricane Milton brought record rainfall. And more will need to be done to understand and invest in resilient infrastructure. The Stormwater Department is currently developing a watershed master plan to better understand how and at what rate water moves across the city. This will offer a more zoomed in and technical focus than the vulnerability assessment. The vulnerability assessment will act as a foundational guide to prioritize and focus on resilient infrastructure. It also opens the door for the city to continue applying for state and federal funds, like the Resilient Florida Grant Program, a program we have successfully drawn down over $35 million for resilience projects in the past few years. Today, we are here at a wastewater pump station, some of the city assets most susceptible to flooding and one that has a critical consequence if they fail for water quality and the level of service our residents expect from us. Wastewater pumps make up more than half of the vulnerability assessment's priority list. We commend the wastewater department's proactiveness to make their pump stations more resilient to the flooding challenges we will face today and in the future. To tell you more about their efforts is Eric Garwell, the wastewater treatment plant manager.
Thank you. The wastewater department had multiple wastewater pump stations that experienced stormwater flooding during last year's hurricane events. This flooding resulted in some wastewater overflows. The department immediately installed portable bypass pumps to maintain our system until the repairs could be made. One of those bypass pumps are behind us that you can hear running right now. Most of the flooding wastewater pump stations were constructed over 40 years ago when the standard engineering design was to install the electrical equipment below grade in the basement of the building. With climate change and sea level rise, this leads to a higher risk of flooding of our facilities. Our new standard is to install all electrical equipment at least 1 foot above the 100-year floodplain, and over at our station you can see the higher electric panels where they've been raised on the concrete pad. Here at 18th Street Wastewater Pump Station, the new electrical panels and controllers have been installed and final electric wiring is being completed. The wastewater pumps are now flood-proof, and the repairs are anticipated to be completed at the end of this month before the start of the new hurricane season. Similar work in raising the electrical equipment and installing flood-proof pumps are currently being performed at other stations that flooded. Since the start of the Mayor's Pipes program, the city has awarded the rehabilitation of 28 wastewater pump stations that include sustainability and resiliency components. Thanks.
All right, any questions? Of course, it is challenging to keep up with, especially these extreme weather events that we have seen. And when people don't really think about, they don't think about wastewater at all, frankly, but they certainly don't think about the fact that we have 228 pump stations just in the city of Tampa. And so rehabilitating a majority of those takes time and funding, as you have said. And back when we passed the PIPES program, the majority of our water, wastewater infrastructure is 80 to 100 years old. And so trying to replace that in descending order from the oldest and most impactful on down, that's the program that our amazing water and wastewater teams have been focused on. Right. We have this assessment that's done every 5 years, vulnerability, and it's really sort of the macro. So with the watershed research that we're doing right now, that will give us the micro view of the impactfulness of development in neighborhoods, and then also, where additional stormwater ponds or infrastructure needs to be in our community. Yes, this is one of the neighborhoods, the overlooked neighborhood, that was impacted by Hurricane Milton. And as you know, a lot of individuals that lived in this particular neighborhood, in the Forest Hills neighborhood, didn't have flood insurance. But as Kayla said, this water is going to settle at the lowest point. And just an example, Forest Hills, there are 9 stormwater ponds that all from the county that all settle into the Forest Hills area. So a rain event like that, with that much, almost 2 feet of rain in a 24-hour period, there's no system that can handle that. But we have to take the steps that we can to ensure that we're putting the infrastructure in place, that the residents are properly covered with insurance, and that the improvements in the construction are done as the residents can afford it.